Hey everyone, it's Jason. Welcome back to some Zombicide White Death. So this is the beginning. So this is. Alright, so for this video, we're going to go over the group of survivors. Most of them are from Japan or Japanese related characters or people from that culture. But we have a couple that are scattered from some other things as well. I did separate these ones from the Chinese because there's like a lot more Chinese. Again, because they're based on lots of the Dynasty Warriors and Romance of the Three Kingdoms storylines. The Japanese are going to have some other interesting characters as well. But we're going to look at the non-Japanese, non-Chinese ones first. Again, I only did quick research on these, so I might not have the exact locations 100% correct on all of them, and I'd probably butcher a lot of the names. But we're going to start with Badang, who is a melee warrior. Melee, or I don't think melee is Malaysian. It might be Malaysia, might be the same thing, it might be the same area. I'm not 100% certain on that. Forgive me for not knowing my geographical locations. But yeah, this guy was kind of cool. Now, if I had to guess, if you just saw him, like, just looked at him, you'd probably be like, oh, this is probably like, supposed to be like Wolverine or something, right? The cool bladed claws, though, but that's definitely neat. It's definitely a cool look versus so many other characters who just all have swords. Even if they're different style swords, it's definitely a neat thing. Like I've said in one of the other videos, like, he doesn't have his tattoos, so you have to actually put his tattoos on there. Paint them on there if you want them tattoos on there. But yeah, so it's kind of cool. Yeah, it'd be kind of a neat little weapon. The little bladed dagger things might be kind of a neat extra mechanic. Alright, so he's going to start with super strength. So that's one of the fun things about the Kickstarter stretch goal characters, is they can be a little bit more powerful than core box set characters, which I think is a really fun idea just in general. They can have a little bit more interesting designs because they don't have to be as balanced. And you might be like, well, that guy's overpowered. Then don't use them. Especially if you're buying this and you have 70 different characters to choose from, choose someone else. So yeah, super strength wise, I want to say it's a little bit overbalanced or unbalanced for ours because it changes your damage to 3. So that means right off the bat, he can take out anything, with the exception of possibly a few necromancers or abominations if they have some sort of special ability. But otherwise, generally, yeah, he can run around, he can punch abominations and take them out. So pretty cool. For guards, he gives 2 damage for melee. If you don't know what the guards are, just ask again. I like doing this as a quick reminder in case people aren't watching all these in order. White Death brought in guards, which are NPC characters that go around the board. And any survivor on your turn, you can use once per turn unless you have extra actions for it. Can activate a zone containing any number of guards, so it can have 1, 6, doesn't matter. And then they all get a performing action. Could be move, could be ranged attack, could be melee attack, as well as some other different options that the survivors can use. So almost every single survivor in this game has a special guard ability, so they at the beginning of the game in the blue level, so they can give them bonuses. This gives them damage for 2. So if he targets a group of guards and tells them to do a melee attack, now all their damage is 2. This is super helpful because that'll let them take out brutes as well as walkers and runners. So very cool. Alright, then in orange, he has +1 die for melee, and he has tough. So this guy's pretty dang devastating, because tough lets you ignore the first point of damage you would suffer every turn. So now you're going to be able to run up and do a lot of melee damage on stuff with super strength. I guess technically it's any strength. It just says, I think super strength just says it changes. Yeah, it is melee weapons. Yeah. So yeah, then he has tough, so he can ignore damage too, so he doesn't have to worry about getting away as fast. Then red, he has 1 free combat action, 1 free move action, and jump. Jump lets you spend it as a move action. You can move up to 2 spaces, skipping the middle space, which is really cool. Lets you jump over groups of zombies, or maybe if you have enough movement points, you might be able to actually move from jump out of a space of a zombie over into another pile of zombies, however you want to do it. Or you can use it to jump over battlement walkways, which are the new big walls in White Death. Up or down them without having to find stairs or ladders, or over like ledges or ramparts or hedges in some of the older Zombicide games. So yeah, very fun thing they have in this game. Featured a lot because of that. Although movement penalties still apply, rather. Alright, let's look at our next survivor. We have Lapu Lapu. I think he's a very kind of familiar name. He's from the Philippines. So again, it's like kind of cool. We got some different people from other culture than just Chinese or Japanese, Asian culture. Let's go look at his miniatures. Yeah, I've heard of Lapu Lapu before. Actually, I think I have one of his cards in Anachronism. Or Anachronism, as it's probably correctly pronounced. I always say it wrong. So yeah. Although he's gonna have both of these guys are gonna have a fun time, being in the middle of this cold ass region of Wintergrad where it's snowing, wearing just their shirts. He starts to shove and he gives a guard push, which are basically the same idea. Shove will let you pick a zone that you're in that has zombies in it and push and take all them zombies and move them one zone to the next zone as long as they can see that zone. So you can't push them around the corner, or push them into somewhere where you can't see. You also use them to push them off of battlement walkways, which is a great way. Then the zombies have to find a way back up. So that could be a great way just to help keep you alive in that instance. Or if you're playing one of the other Zombicides, you could push them off of a ledge, or if you're playing modern Zombicide, you could push them into a hole, which is really fun. And then guards has the push ability. It's the same thing. You are telling the guards in that zone to push the zombies. The only reason it's a different keyword than shove is because you are targeting the zone of the guards versus you targeting yourself. So it's giving them a slightly different prompt in how it's worded. In orange, he has one free melee action, and he has taunt. Taunt is a fun ability that I love, and I've went over this tons of times. So you pick a zone with zombies in it that you can see in your line of sight, and you give them a free free activation. So then they want to try to move and attack you. And what this does is it usually to move the zombies one zone closer. They're going to ignore any other survivors, including the ones that would already be in their zones. It's a great way to pull the zombies out of a zone of another survivor so they can get away or be safe on that turn so they don't get hurt. But you also use their set up combos and stuff, bringing a bunch of zombies and moving them into one zone with another group, so that way you can firebomb it or dragon bile fire it, or have one guy take out a bunch. Maybe one zone has two zombies in it. One has one zombie. You could bring them together so that when you roll your dice, you can take them all at the same time, or freeze it. Or bring them closer into range of a ranged character or magic character. So yeah, lots of cool stuff there. In red, one free combat action, escalation melee, and freeze for combat. So freeze is a new ability from White Death. So what it does is when you target an area with whatever type of ability is, so combat being melee, ranged, or magic, otherwise sometimes they specify one of them, you place a freeze token, which is a little snowflake token on the board. And at the beginning of that zombies in that zone's activation, they all lose all their activation points, whether they have 1 or 2 or 3, being like a runner or a wolf or maybe an abomination. And then the token's removed. There's no penalties for any other zombies that enter that zone afterwards. And you can't place it on a zone with no zombies, so you can't cast it as a trap. But it's a great way to stop a bunch of zombies from attacking your survivors on the next turn. You freeze that area on their turn, they won't be able to attack you. Oddly enough, though, since the freeze doesn't happen until their activation, there's no way for you to move out of their zone because they're still active. So it's a little bit of a delayed action there. Yeah, very cool. And then escalation melee we haven't talked about yet. Escalation, whether it's melee, magic, ranged, whatever, says every time you perform the same type of action, you get a rolling additional dice. So if he's using a katana that has 2 dice, and then he makes a second attack, now he gets to roll 3 dice. Makes a third attack, he gets 4 dice. Makes a 5th attack for some reason, he gets 5 dice. So every time he does the same exact type of attack, in this case melee, he gets an additional dice. The combo ends whenever you do any other action, move, search, guard action, rearrange your inventory, whatever. Yeah, that can be definitely a really fun ability. It's very cool. Alright, so our third character, we have Yi Sun-sing. So Yi Sun-sing is from Korea. So he's a Korean warlord. So we're going to look at his. Okay, he's double wielding some big old swords here. Lots of armor, padded armor. Very good. Okay, I just stabbards in the back. That's what they were. In another video, I said scarabs, and I could not remember stabard. Because they're very close, but they're different enough that it made me sound probably really stupid in that video that I couldn't remember it. But that's what that is, right? Alright, so what does he have? He starts as tough, so he can take some damage right away. And then he has guards. He has 2 damage for range. So if they do a ranged attack, they get 2 damage. He has hit and run in orange and roll 6 plus 1 damage for melee. Hit and run is anytime you go a combat action, as long as you defeat at least 1 zombie, you have a free move action with no penalty. So you can then use that to leave the area. So this is a great way if you don't finish all the zombies off, you can then move out of the area. Or if you happen to finish them all off, you can start using it to move to the next area to keep attacking, so you don't have to waste an extra move action. Or if you have enough luck, you could potentially just take out, keep moving through multiple groups of zombies by just running through, slashing one down, slashing another one down. But it's kind of risky because you get stuck in the middle and you don't take them all out. Very cool. And red, he has 1 free combat action, Brothers in Arm, Ironclad, Abomination, and Board Leader. So Board Leader lets him tell any other survivor during his turn to take a free action. And this can be whatever they want. This could be a move action, a combat action, a search action, picking up an objective, making noise, whatever might help you out at that time. Because he finished clearing out zombies he couldn't do. He can move away in case there's runners coming. Getting an objective so that way he can even use one of the other abilities like taunt or shove. So it's very cool. Just lets you interrupt the game to let somebody else do something. It could be before they already activated or already took their turn. So very cool. And then Brothers in Arms, Ironclad, Abomination. So Ironclad basically means a zombie of that type cannot deal damage to this character. They'll still try and attack them every turn. They just won't deal any wounds. This can be a great way to be able to move around the board without having to worry about it. Because now if they get in your zone, you can kind of take your time taking them out. The only problem you have to remember, though, is if you get too many in that zone, the other types that come in, if they eventually mix together, will still be able to hurt you. And you can't leave that zone the more and more zombies are, because you won't end up having enough actions to escape. So if all of a sudden you're fighting 3 walkers and you have Ironclad Walker and they can't hurt you, that's great. But then if all of a sudden 2 runners show up in the next phase, if you can't take them runners out, they're going to start hurting you. And now you have 5 zombies in there and you can't escape because you don't have enough actions. So it could be a double-edged sword there. So the Abomination one is pretty nice. If you can get it later in the games, you don't have to worry about the Abomination. You could take your time taking them out, or let somebody else deal with them. Hey, I'll hold him here for a couple of turns so someone else can get over and take him out. That way he's not continually moving across the board and doing that stuff. So Brothers in Arms is the other half of that. So the BIA. So what that means is, as long as he is in a zone with another survivor, he has this ability. And every single one of them has it. So if he's sitting with at least one other person, they both cannot be hurt by abominations. But if he's ever by himself, he loses that ability. So that's kind of an interesting brother-in-arms ability, because it could be very helpful if you have another character hanging out with them, because they can keep each other alive versus the Abomination. But if neither of them can take it out, it doesn't mean a whole lot. So cool. Got some extra new abilities there. All right. So for the next 3 characters we have are all based on either Hindu or India type characters. I don't want to generally say that everyone in India is into Hindu and everything in Hindu is India, because it's not 100% accurate. But I'm grouping these 3 together because I know that culture and location kind of go together. So just heads up on that. So we're going to look at Lashakamana. So he is an archer. So I haven't had an archer yet, I don't think. Let's take a look at his artwork there, or his miniature. It's got a big adorning headband or headgear, a little like ring around the corner, like the halo, kind of neat. Even like the adorned quiver there and his bow, very ornamental, but again, also interesting to note, like, because these guys are supposed to be from their countries and not from Wintergrad, which is where the Zombicide game takes place. They're all wearing just shirts, so they're going to be probably a little bit cold. Alright, so he starts with Brothers in Arm, 1 free ranged action. So yeah, unless he hangs out with other characters, they'll get 1 free ranged action. Does not apply to guards, only to other regular survivors. But he can give guards 1 extra max range. So he could kind of hang out near the guards. Him and someone else could be doing extra ranged attacks while the guards are shooting extra long distance. That could be very helpful. In orange, he has Brothers in Arms, +1 die roll for range. So these could stack on top of each other. Or he could switch to 2 damage for range. So if he needs his ranged attacks to do a little bit more damage. Then in red, +1 die for combat, 1 free combat action, or shove. And again, this could be kind of the guy I could imagine in this campaign or scenario. Have him sitting up on top of one of the walls, and then he can just sit there and keep sniping guys. And if they ever get to the point where they get to his zone, he can just shove them out. Shove them back down the wall and start over. So that could be pretty fun. Awesome. Alright, our next guy up is Raja, maybe? Chola? Again, probably butchering that name very terribly. But what does his miniature look like? So, that's this big old scimitar. Little robes. I love his little shield, but he's wrapped his cape around his arm. That's pretty cool. Versus just having it be flowing. I wonder if that's like for historical things, if that's maybe like a battle thing. That way when he like flashes his shields and stuff, maybe he can flip his cape up or something and people won't notice he has his shields, or like a distraction technique. Not sure. So he starts with Boring Leader, which we already talked about, but he can give guard. He has 1 free guard action, so he can give the guards an action without spending 1 of his own. He just doesn't give them a special ability. He has 1 free melee action in Shove. In Red, 1 free melee action, +1 die roll for melee or Bloodlust melee. So Bloodlust, whether it's melee or magic or ranged, lets you spend 1 action to combine your move and attack action. So instead of getting a move 1 space and doing an attack, you can move up to 2 spaces and get a free attack, but you have to move into a space with a zombie. So it has this little bit of downside. Obviously, you probably want to you're going to attack anyhow with a melee, you're going to have to be in their space anyways. But you can't just use it like a free extra movement action. So yeah, very cool. I do like how it says you spend it to gain a move action, then you get a free attack action. Alright. Our last of our Hindi Indian characters is Rama. Another ranged character. Got his fancy bow. They usually have like the little beads on them. Although I've seen them on lots of other characters as well. Alright. So he starts with roll 6, you get +1 die for ranged. So every time you roll a 6, you get an extra die. And then guards, damage 2 for range. In orange, +1 die roll for range, or if he rolls a 6, he gets +1 damage to range. So now if he has both of them equipped, means every time he rolls a 6, he does 1 extra damage, and he gets to roll a new die. And if he rolls a 6 with that, he gets to do it again. Otherwise, he has 1 free combat action in red, +1 max range, or hit and run. So kind of like, what do you need to be doing? Do you need to be escaping, or do you want to be able to still hit from a distance? Which is very cool. Alright, then we have one last character that is one of the non-straight Japanese characters, which everyone should probably know, Genghis Khan from the Mongolians. Any shield slots, that's pretty cool. Everyone knows all about Genghis Khan. Big giant warlord. He has a lot of armor on. Oh, he even has a bird on his shoulder. I just now realized that. That is neat. His shield's all hidden. I also am a little bit disappointed by this shield, though. That it looks fine for the miniature, but if you look at the artwork, it's all spiky. That definitely would have been a lot cooler weapon. Awesome. So then we have, he starts as boarding leader, because of course he needs to start being able to boss everybody around, and he can give guards free actions. In orange, 1 free move action, or bloodlust melee. In red, 1 free melee action, 1 free move action, or 1 free ranged action. So yeah, he starts off telling everyone else what to do. Then he has the ability to, like, I can get in closer, just to move around, or I can get into attack. And then finally at the end, so what do you need him to do? Does he need to stand back and shoot guys? Does he need to get up in melee? Very strategic, rather than just being like, he's not always rushing. So very cool there. Alright, there's the back of his card. Little bird has a hat on as well. Alright, so our first Japanese character is Niza, who's actually a deity. So he's not actually, as far as I can tell, he's not based off of a specific historical person. He's based kind of off like this fire deity, like god. So kind of want to take a look at him first. He does look definitely cool. He got some flames on his feet there. Big old giant spear, fire spear. Flaming hair. That would have been a cool item to have, like that spear. So he gets, for his abilities, if we want to focus camera, he can hold sprint, but he starts with jump, so he gets to move around a bit, and he can give guards jump. In orange, he has 1 free melee action, or +1 die roll for ranged attacks, so kind of whichever. And then in red, 1 free die for combat, 1 free combat action, or 1 free move action. So, kind of just wants to get into battle, mess it up a little bit, but he's a little bit more flexible. Definitely, even like the little flames on the pants look really cool. Very anime. Alright, then we have another, kind of like mythological character. We have the Byaku Maru. This is like a transformed white wolf beast. So, Byaku is usually, I think, kind of related to the name of the white wolf, which we've seen in the deities pack. And then the Maru is usually like beast, is what that means. So I think it's just kind of like a combination of like mythological, like ideology, deity type stuff, as well as maybe a little anime tossed in there. So I put these guys first. But he definitely looks cool. So much hair, though. Well, yeah, more beast-type characters are always fun. something a little bit different. Alright, so then we have Bloodlust Melee right off the bat. He also gives Bloodlust Melee to guards, which is really cool. And guards can get in and do some damage, because they're not always going to be sitting up on the battlement walkways. They can be down in the trench of combat with everybody else. Roll 6 for +1 damage melee and escalation melee. In red, +1 die for melee, 1 free melee action, or 1 free move action. So he just wants to get in and do some damage. Alright, so we're going to go for another name that people might recognize. Is Miyamoto Musashi. So I think he's been known for a lot of stuff over the years. My instinct thing I come to is Brave Fencer Musashi. That's just my immediate thing I thought of when I read his name. But yeah, she's more of a standard Japanese samurai or bushido that you would see. Has double swords, but he's only got one out at the time. Interesting enough, though, his SWAT, he can hold a dagger. So that's kind of cool. So he starts with +1 die roll for melee, and he starts with a katana. So he is one of the very, very few characters in the game that does not have a guard ability. Also to note, one of the other big couple of characters that don't are the virtues of Bushido, who also have a start with a katana ability. So I think the idea is because they're more like Ronin, masterless guys, they're not usually tethered to like an army, they wouldn't have guards around them generally. I think it's kind of the idea with that. So then he also has an orange 1 free melee action and Lucky. Lucky lets you, anytime you do an action, combat, melee, whatever, you can reroll all your dice once and take the new results. So if you roll really badly, you can have another shot at it. In red, +1 free melee action, or +1 die roll for melee, or hit and run. So very cool. So you get stuff. Alright. We're kind of blasting through some of these guys. I was super excited about this one. We have Okuni. So I might be pronouncing that wrong. Not because I know who she is, but because I love there's a Parasol lady. So that's always like a big, anime thing they'll sometimes have, but I'm sure they used it in actual lore at some point. But yeah, she attaches a Parasol. She also has like a Luke on her back, which is cool. Now, I do wish that was also a melee weapon, a polearm weapon in the game, right? The Parasol. Maybe, like, have it be, there's, like, the spike at the end. Maybe have it be, like, a polearm weapon with, like, a bonus that has, like, armor, like 5. Like, you aren't going to hit it very often. Or +1 to armor. Might be kind of neat. Alright, so she starts with Slippery. So Slippery lets you move in and out of zones of zombies without having to have any penalty. So yeah, you can basically, if she has like a movement of 3 for some reason, if she can move through, she could just run through 3 groups of zombies without having to pay any penalty, or she can leave, regardless of how many there are. She has 1 free guard action. In orange, she has 1 free move action, and Brother in Arms, roll 6, +1 damage for combat. So this doesn't matter if it's ranged, magic, melee, so whoever she's sticking with is going to end up getting extra damage if they ever roll a 6. So that could be super helpful if she hangs out with her team. In red, 1 free combat action, Brothers in Arms, +1 die roll +1 to the die roll for combat, and Spellbook. So Spellbook we haven't seen yet. Lets you treat all your spells and enchantments in your backpack as if they were in your hand. So yeah, that's actually really super helpful. Because in that way you can, access any of them, have more in there. You can dual wield stuff. I was trying to check something here. So I think I'm not sure of. So it does say for like roll 6, it says add 1 to the damage value of the weapon for that specific one for each 6 rolled during the action. So then I wonder if you have +1 to die roll, if that can make it into a 6 and that counts as a 6. Since as 1 the result of each die roll with the action specified type, the maximum result is always 6, because obviously you can't go above that. I would think it would, right? So if I have both of these brothers in arms, that means as long as someone rolls a 5, they would always be guaranteed a 6. That could actually make that really powerful. So anyone that's in there would always get an additional damage every time they roll a 5 or a 6. So that could be pretty cool. You didn't specifically say that in the book. That's why I was just checking quick. Alright. Alright, we have another lady character up. We have Suzuka Gozen. So here's one thing I didn't mention at the beginning of this video, but a lot of Asian stuff, specifically more Chinese, Japanese, I don't know if it applies as much to the, like, Korean, Melee, all the other characters, but usually the way they work is their last name is their first name. So, like, that's really switching from how, like, Americans do it. I think this might be one of the exceptions. Just because of the next character we'll look at. But let's take a look at her miniature. She has a fox mask on, which is really cool. You haven't seen too many characters with, like, different masks on. I'm gonna speak that. I don't think we've seen any, like, I don't know if we've had any, like, kabuki-type characters either, but maybe that's... My brain's thinking back even to, like, we have the interesting crossover would be, with these guys would be, Zombicide invaders actually have one of the clans that are Kabuki warriors. And that might be kind of interesting there. Focus up, please, camera. Alright, so she starts with Slippery, and then she gives Evade for the guards. So Evade lets the guards move out of the zone with zombies without any penalty. So it's kind of like Slippery for the guards, but instead they can't move through areas because they never generally have more than one movement at a time, but it will let them get out of the range without having to spend any extra, or they can get out of the range of zombies without any penalties. In Orange has 1 free move action and Reaper melee, so they can keep having to be able to move around a bunch, or give her some extra melee abilities. In Red, she has 1 free combat action, +1 zone per move, and Spellcaster. So Spellcaster will let her get a free action to cast either a magic or an enchantment. Either one of them. And then 1 zone per move, so normally you can only move 1. This lets her move an additional. So she can use this with that and Slippery. She can get through the board very quickly. Plus they that extra free move action. So I mean she could potentially, by the time she got that, if you had your 3, you had your 4, you have your 5, and then you use that, she could have 5 movements where she could move 2 spaces each time. She could run through the entire board, so it'd be something that'd be great for maybe getting past the zombies, activating objectives across the map, or maybe getting across there and taking like a necromancer at range. So that could be pretty cool. Alright, so she was Suzuka Gozen, and this is only why I want to say their last names might be different, because now we have Tomi Gozen. These are probably sisters. But yeah, normally it would be the other way around. It would be like Gozen something, but yeah, she has a double-bladed. Their long hair everywhere. I like the big padded armor on like the, almost like on the dress on the back. The butt cloak, I don't know what you would call that. Alright, but what does she do for us? She has +1 die in combat, and she can give the guards the lucky ability. This is going to help them attack better. In Red, Orange, she has 1 free move action, Swordmaster. Swordmaster lets her treat any melee weapon as if it has the dual wield ability. So she can grab 2 basic katanas, or 2 pole arms, or whatever, 2 daggers. She can act like they all have double dual types, you can roll extra dice for each of them. It's also a fun ability for, like, as you're going through the game, you get that in the orange level, is that as everyone else has been getting better stuff, toss her back the cheaper weapons if you haven't caught anything better. So maybe she can roll extra dice and utilize 2 basic starting weapons a little bit easier. In red, 1 die for combat, 1 free combat action, or roll a 6 plus 1 die for combat. So, in combat's cool because, again, it's melee or range. She can kind of do whatever she wants. She just has that sword master ability if you're going a little bit towards melee. It's very cool there. Alright, our next guy up is Honda Takadasu. Takadasu, probably. He can hold pole arms. So pole arms are a new type of weapon in White Death. So they are melee attacks that attack at a range of 1/1. So they cannot attack your space like most melee weapons do, but they attack 1 space away. So it's a cool way to have a little bit of a ranged ability with a melee character, so they don't have to worry about being in the same zone as zombies. But it also means they can't attack directly into the zone that they're in, so they have to be very careful that zombies don't overrun them anyhow. So he starts with Lucky, gives guards evade. In orange, 1 free melee action, hit and run. Then in red, 1 free combat action, plus 1 die roll for melee and regeneration. Generation is an ability we do not see come up often because it is a little bit abusive. Just means at the end of... During each end phase, survivor health is fully restored to its maximum. So if he has 3 health, as long as he does not take 3 damage, he'll always revive back to full health. Every single time. So he can afford to take a little bit of extra damage here and there. So getting in there and doing some of this hit and run and stuff isn't a bad idea if he can take out enough guys. Very cool. Alright, we have another archer. A Horde Surahumi. I'm hoping I'm saying that anywhere near right. So there she is. She's got a simple... Oh, I love the arrow on the bow. That's like the first time I think we've seen that with any of the miniatures. Usually it shows them already, like, having fired the arrow, or they just didn't put the arrow in there. Probably, again, it's the plastic. So this stuff's not, like, sticking way out where it can break off too much. Kind of just gotta watch that here and there. So she has Reaper range. You've seen Reaper for melee. Reaper range is kind of a weird one for me. Oh, sorry, not Reaper range. I'm thinking Bloodlust. Reaper range is actually pretty good. So if they want to kill 1 zombie, they get to eliminate an additional zombie of the same type. So if she ever does a ranged attack, and she takes out 3 walkers, she gets to take out an additional walker. If she takes out 2 runners, she gets to take out 1 additional runner. If for whatever reason, there would be 2 necromancers or 2 abominations in the same zone, and she can manage to kill 1 of them, she gets to take out the other one for free. This is a very fun ability, especially at range. It's kind of nice. She can give the guards plus 1 max range. In orange, she has plus 1 die roll for range or escalation range. As long as she keeps firing them arrows, she'll do extra dice. In red, 1 free combat action, 1 free move action, or lucky. So cool. All just kind of like sets her up to do that Reaper in range. Just having her take out guys. The only thing is she still has to follow the at-ranged ability. She still has to follow the chart, so she has to take out the bigger guys before the smaller guys. So if you could somehow get her a weapon with marksman where she could choose her targets, then she could become even more deadly. But that's where the fun of the weapons coming, right? Alright, we have Sanada Yukamura. He has a little daggers in his hand, but he also has this wicked double-bladed weapon. Again, I wish they would have made these into weapons in the game. I've had that rather than just having generic swords. Again, just have a ton of vault weapons for all these different characters. Like, it doesn't even need to be like they're the only ones that get to use them. Just having access to them would have been cool. But it's what it is. You know, hey, that's what custom content is for, right? So he has Barbarian, which we have not yet seen. So Barbarian is, there's 1 for each different type for melee, ranged, and magic. Barbarian is the melee version of this skill. So when he does this, he gets to roll dice for every zombie in his zone. So if he has again, let's say a katana that can roll 2 dice, and he has 5 zombies in his zone, he gets to roll 5 dice for that katana instead. So yeah, if he gets into the more and more zombies that group up, the more and more dice he gets to roll, he has a better chance of taking them all out. Doesn't mean he's going to roll enough to take out all of them, but he just has more options. He can give the guards reach. So, I don't think we've actually seen this ability yet. Reach. Survivors may perform melee actions at range 0 to 1. So this just lets the guards do their melee actions a little bit further. So in general idea, guards doing this isn't going to mean anything. So like if just by himself. So if he just as normal, if he's the only guy that has anything that affects guards out, it's not going to make a difference because their ranged and their melee attacks are the exact same. Roll number of dice and number of damage. Where this will make a difference is going to be if you have any zombies that can only take melee damage, like the berserkers. That'll definitely be helpful for them, so you can attack them with space further away. Or it's going to help if you have other guys that have like guards that give melee plus 2 damage. Because reach is always just going to be active. As far as I can understand. Otherwise, if it's not always turned on, it's not going to always give them that extra reach. Then again, it's almost nearly a pointless ability. Like, it only activates if he targets them and says attack. Then they can attack one space away because, again, his ranged abilities don't mean anything. The only other reason it would make sense is if you're doing a melee action, you can choose who to hit and ignore friendly fire. So that might be the only other reason it could be helpful. You can attack one space away and you can choose what he kills instead of having to do a range and be subject to the order. So it's something I have to look into to see if this is supposed to be an active ability, a passive ability or not. Because again, it doesn't really say that in here. Alright, anywho, so we have 1 free melee action and roll 6 plus 1 die for combat. In red, we have 1 free combat action, plus 1 roll for melee action, and lucky. So yeah, it's got some cool abilities. Yeah, he doesn't talk about it on the back there either. Alright, so what we haven't seen very many of in here are mage characters or magic users. So we have Usagi Aya. She's a big crescent moon staff. She's got the cool mask, little hair buns. Plus, I love that she has a book out. Well, when they give the mages books, because it really makes sense. Like, I am a magic character. I am reading from my flaming spell book, I guess. So she starts with spell book, so again, she can use anything in her inventory for magic or enchantment scrolls as if they're in her hand, which definitely just helps her cast whatever she needs when she needs it. She gives the guards push. In orange, she has plus 1 die for magic or spellcaster, giving her the free magic or enchantment action. In red, plus 1 free combat action, damage 2 for magic, or double casting. Double casting we do not see very often. Every time a survivor performs an enchantment action, they can select an extra target for the same enchantment for free. First designate both targets and resolve one after this. So if she has, like, the sprint enchantment, which gives the character the sprint ability, so they can move extra 2 to 3 spaces every turn, she can target 2 different guys. Or if she has jump, she can have 2 different guys jump, or if she has whatever. But it has to be an enchantment as opposed to a combat spell. But yeah, very cool. If she has a healing scroll enchantment, she can heal 2 guys every turn. That's nuts. It's very cool. I love the design too. Very, very cool design. I love the little shoulder hole. That's neat. Alright. Then we have Date Masamune. She probably has something to do with the Masamune blade. Very famous blade. I looks like he just pulled it out of his scarab there. Check the symbol on the back. Very cool. Very cool looking. Sorry, he starts with escalation combat. So he gets to do escalation. He doesn't care what type. So, and as far as I can understand, I might have this wrong, but normally if it's escalation melee, you have to keep doing melee attacks. Escalation range, you have to keep doing range. This just says combat. So the idea is he should be able to switch back and forth between melee, magic, range, any three of them, because they're all combat actions. So once he just continues to do a combat and doesn't do like move, or search for an item or something like that. In his other blue, he has 1 free guard action. In orange, +1 die for combat or 1 free move action. In red, 1 free combat action, bloodlust, melee, and boring leader. Very cool. Alright, we're down to our last 4 survivors. Lots of these guys have a lot of the same abilities, so we're flying through them a little bit quicker than we should. Plus, there's a few less than there was in some of the other videos. So we have Medea Matsu. Let's have another one of these double-bladed weapons. You know, they added pole arms. Why didn't they add double-bladed weapons in there? Like, that'd be even a cool vault weapon. It'd be like a double-bladed sword, like 1 or 2 of them or something, that gives you Reaper. Like, right, I took out one guy at one side, I swung it around and took out a guy on the other side. That would have been pretty cool. And maybe we have one, I'm just not thinking of it, which is always very possible. Alright, so she has Sprint. Sprint lets her move 2 or 3 zones instead of 1 for an action. Let me just double check to make sure I have that right. Yep, maybe 2 or 3 zones instead, but they still have to end if they enter a zombie zone. So, unless they have something that gives them slippery. So guards can move 1 per zone, so it helps guards get around the board a little bit quicker. So you can use them to help position guards. In orange, 1 free melee action and spellcaster. In red, 1 die for combat, +1 free combat action or spellbook. So, kind of move around, then you start casting your magic as you get around the board. But moving around quick early on is not a bad thing, because then you could possibly get to areas and do search actions, try and find extra spells or extra combat items before the zombies get too close. Alright, our next person up is Kodai-in. So we have another ninja-y looking character, so got some little short fat daggers. All the ribbons, but actually looks very, why am I going to say the name wrong? I want to say Kunichi. Yes, she's like just a female ninja. Very cool. Always like some more of that design. Alright, so she has jump, and she can give the guards 2 damage for their melee actions. She has an orange born leader, or 2 damage melee for herself. In red, 1 free melee action, +1 die roll for melee or escalation melee. So she just wants to get into the action and start damaging things. Very cool. Alright. Then we have, I did not stack this, so we had all the females at the end. I just randomly laid these all down. That's just how they came. Let's see if I can get this anywhere near it. Komo Matsuhime? Hopefully. Something like that. But yeah, this is kind of neat too. Like, she's holding the arrow. That's kind of fun. Just, again, trying to get some of these different poses from these characters, so it's not just everyone shooting a bow or aiming a bow, or... And I'd rather have an action pose like this than having them, like, the bow hanging out at their side. We kind of get a little bit disappointed when I see the guards or the zombies like that, where their weapons are hanging out at their side. I'd rather have them in some sort of pose. But she has freeze for range. So she fires a range, she's putting them freeze token down, whether she hits or not. So guards have +1 max range. In orange has 1 free range action plus 1 max range, and then in red, 1 free die for, plus 1 die for range action, 1 free range action, or escalation range. So she just wants to be firing stuff left and right. There's nothing wrong with having that. And then our final survivor of the Frozen Fortress box, assuming you watched the other videos in order I'm putting them, we have Sakai Megochi. This guy has a gun. This is like the second guy we've had that's had a gun. Although I don't think there are any gun equipment in the game. But yeah, it's kind of interesting because it's going to be like just different time period. Like maybe he came later, or when guns, or maybe he's one of the first users of a gun. But yeah, cool beard around his neck, kind of hiding who he is. Alright, and then what does he do for us? He has plus 1 max range and gives guards plus 1 max range. In orange, he has 1 free ranged action. Roll 6 plus 1 damage for ranged. In red, 1 free combat action, hit and run, and lucky. So, it's got some extra range stuff, kind of just gets a little bit different stuff in there. So, very, very cool. Alright, that's what we have for our Frozen Fortress survivors. So, if you haven't checked out the other survivor videos, check out them. Also, check out the zombies and see what cool zombies we get in this box. See you guys later. Bye.